Welcome to Ground Control. It is time to take the Eachine Mini P47 Razorback back out for a couple more test flights. I have performed the adjustments I spoke about in the last video. So we'll take it out and we'll conduct a test flight on the stock transmitter, and then we'll conduct a test flight with the hobby grade transmitter. The ballast weight is the same, but I am going to take some additional ballast weight out with me and test it out with some additional ballast weight as well. My thinking is this is probably going to need somewhere between 7.5 to 10 grams of ballast weight on the nose to get it right where I would want the CG. But I want to test it first without any additional ballast weight with the down trim in the elevator. So I'll see you out there.
Okay, I've got a timer set for 5 minutes, a couple of shorter flights because I want to fly it on both transmitters, and I haven't tested the return to home function yet, or it'll come back in the opposite direction that it was launched if you record it. So I want to record that real quick. See if we can do it. Okay, so I've recorded it and I want to fly it around. I've got it in beginner mode. I want to fly it around and see if I can mess it up, you know, do some circuits with it, do some lazy figure eights with it, and then test the return home, see if it could still remember which direction in which it was launched. Okay, so let me get my timer started here and we'll see how my adjustments prove to be. Alright, so timer's going. Alright, so let's get it in the air in beginner mode. Ooh, I definitely have more rudder now. Yeah, I like having more rudder in it. That's a lot tighter turn just using the rudder than it had before. It was really wide before. Whee! Whee! Oh, right over the truck. What's the matter with me? I don't know. Okay, so let's gain a little altitude and let's see. Well, it's turning back this way, but boy, is it slow. I'm almost losing sight of it, so I'm going to bring it back around here. So it works, but man, is it slow. It is really slow to make its turn back this way. Yeah, you might have about 100 meters to go get it. But the function does work. It was turning and coming back in the proper direction. So that's a good thing. The elevator feels a little bit softer with the stock transmitter than it did before. Right over the truck again. That's not good. I'm just flying at bank and yank right now. Nice tight turn in beginner mode. Just like before. Now, let's put a little rudder in it this time. Yeah. Good. Yeah, look at that. That is tight. That is really tight with full rudder and full aileron. Yeah. Like I said, you can fly this one in a very small area. Okay, so I want to gain some altitude, and I want to see about putting it in intermediate mode again, just to see on the stock transmitter. Let me climb up. Okay, are we ready? Alright, I'm back in the beginner mode. I hung on to it a little bit longer that time, but the controls on the stock transmitter are still pretty darn abrupt in intermediate mode. So I really only recommend this plane in beginner mode. If it's abrupt on the controls in intermediate mode, and I've flown a lot of these micro planes in full manual mode without any issues. So if this one is feels really abrupt to me in intermediate mode, I think it will to most people. And I especially wouldn't recommend a beginner put it in intermediate mode. Okay, so that's the end of our timer for the stock transmitter. That wasn't as smooth as my last landing, but you'll notice it's still on its feet. It didn't nose over. So yeah, I know I said it before, but I do like these bigger wheels and tires on these 500mm planes. Now, I've had a lot of people that I've responded to in post. This plane, like I said, I think the 500mm wingspan, the size of this plane, I think it is at the edge of its capability with a brushed motor and gearbox. This is not an aerobatic plane by any stretch of the imagination. So the way that I would recommend this is as it was designed for, which is as a beginner plane. It doesn't have a lot of power, but it's super stable in the air and you can get a lot of flight time with it. I measured the voltage on the batteries. After I flew it for 7 minutes, I still had 3.8 volts per cell. So the way that I fly it, I could get a 13-minute flight out of it, leaving 3.5 volts per cell. So, very nice slow flight capability. You can fly, it turns sharp enough in beginner mode that you can fly it in a small area. The gyro is rock solid. So for a beginner, yes, I would recommend this plane. Only in beginner mode though. So if you're looking for something that will perform aerobatics, you need to look at something else. So anyway, we put another battery pack in it and give it a flight with the RadioMaster TX16S, and we'll see what intermediate mode feels like with that transmitter. See you in a minute. Okay, this flight is going to be with the TX16S transmitter. I did add an additional 5 grams of weight to the nose, which puts the CG just about where I would like to have it. So, let's see if it can carry that weight okay, and how it flies in intermediate mode with the hobby grade transmitter. Here we go. Well, it seems to be carrying the weight just fine. Okay, so let's do a climb out, gain some altitude, and see what it's like in intermediate mode. And that's intermediate mode. Much easier to control with a hobby grade transmitter as opposed to the stock transmitter. Okay, so let's do another climb out, gain a little altitude. Hey, it did a loop. A real lazy one, but it performed a loop. I'm surprised. I really didn't think it would, especially since I didn't dive down first. Okay, so intermediate mode, and I think especially with the additional weight I've got on the nose, is pretty smooth. You have to be careful that you don't over control it, you know, because it will, you know, you have a lot more angle to use. See there? A lot more angle to use. And I don't think I would want to add any more weight to it. So it looks to me, you know, the way it's flying in intermediate mode now, and the fact that I was able to do that very lazy loop, I think that weight on the nose is just about right. You might actually be able to lighten it up a little bit. I think I said somewhere between 7.5 and 10 grams of weight on the nose. I've got 10 grams of weight on the nose right now, and I think I've got a nickel on it and 2 pennies, which gives me about 10 grams of weight. I'm going to kick it back in the beginner mode. There we go. And I think I'm going to go ahead and land it and remove that nickel and put on a penny. Oh man, that was nice and smooth. Yeah, so I think I'm going to remove the nickel and put on a penny, because I think about 7.5 grams on the nose might be better than 10. It almost seemed a little nose heavy to me. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll be back, and we'll put it back in the air again. I'll reset my, I guess I can't reset my timer. I've only got 2 flight batteries for this plane. But we'll go ahead and put it in the air for another 3 or 4 minutes, and see how it feels with 7.5 grams of weight on the nose instead of 10. So I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so I replaced the nickel with a penny, which now gives me approximately 7.5 grams of nose weight instead of 10. So let's launch it in beginner mode again. We'll fly through the rest of the timer. Okay, so let's do a climb out here. Gain some altitude. Okay, now we're in intermediate mode. Well, it certainly doesn't feel tail heavy in intermediate mode. You know, there's only one way to be sure, right? And that's putting it in manual mode. I'm going to climb out again. And I may have to put it back into beginner mode really quick, but let's see. That's manual mode now. It does not feel tail heavy, guys. Oh, I don't have enough aileron to do a roll. I gave it full stick deflection there. That wasn't going to work. So that is in manual mode. And that nose weight feels good. It didn't even pitch up at all. So yeah, I'm thinking 7.5 grams of nose weight, 7 to 7.5 grams of nose weight has got it. There's a loop in manual mode. That was a little better than intermediate, wasn't it? Okay. I got it back in beginner mode now. Yeah, 7.5 grams of nose weight felt really good. I kicked it into intermediate mode. The nose stayed right there. I kicked it into manual mode, and the nose stayed right there. It didn't pitch at all. Didn't pitch up, didn't pitch down. So the mechanical trim that I have on the elevator that counteracts that angle of attack on the main wing, I'm almost thinking, yeah, I think I put 4 full turns out on the clevis after putting the elevator completely neutral to mechanically adjust the down trim on the elevator. I think that I might actually, there goes my timer. I think I might actually turn that back in 1 full turn. So putting the elevator completely neutral and backing the clevis out 3 full turns, I think would do it. I think that would get, with the 7.5 grams of weight on the nose, I think that would get the balance right where it needs to be. Okay, so let's bring it in and land it, because I'm out of timer now. Look at that, man, that comes in nice and smooth, doesn't it? All right, and it doesn't nose over. Man, I love that. I think this is the first microplane, this and the Cessna are the 2 first microplanes that I've flown. They had landing gear large enough that, you know, it wouldn't kick the nose up in the air after it came to a stop. So yeah, I think that was a pretty good test. I like all the adjustments that I made to it. I think it handles better on the stock transmitter for my flying style. And I have to have the controls a bit softer because I don't have that light touch on the controls, especially with the stock transmitter. So,
Okay, so those flights went very well. I like the balance that I have on it now. I like the nose weight. I could even fly it in manual mode with the hobby grade transmitter. As I stated, I want to take 1 full turn of trim back out of the elevator. But the balance felt really good. And so when I switched it from beginner mode to intermediate mode, the nose and the tail stayed right where they were. When I switched it from intermediate mode to manual mode, the nose and the tail stayed right where they were. I didn't see even a twitch in it. So that tells me the balance is good. So this was provided courtesy of Banggood. I want to thank Banggood again for sending this item for review. I do recommend this plane as a beginner plane, and that's its intended purpose. This is a low power, slow flying plane. In beginner mode with the stock transmitter, it is rock solid on the gyro. It's very easy to fly. Now, I always adjust these planes and tweak them a little bit to get them to fly the way I would like them to fly, and also to match my flying style. So I will tell you, I've already told you, I've got 7.5 grams of nose weight on it. I like that. On the elevator, I moved the linkage on the elevator from the outer hole on the servo arm to the inner hole to make it a little less responsive on the tail, and that helped. I wanted more movement on the rudder, so I moved the control linkage from the outer hole on the rudder to the inner hole at the control horn. And that worked really well. It has a nice bit of rudder dialed into it now. I will, since I'm going to be flying this with the TX16S going forward, I will also move the control linkage at the control horns for the ailerons from the top hole to the bottom hole to give me more movement on the ailerons, and then the next time I take it out, I'll test the roll authority. I don't think this is going to have much roll capability at all, and the reason that I say that is because even with additional movement on these ailerons, this is a slow flying plane. It is not moving very quickly through the air, and so the ailerons are not going to be very responsive at all at slow speed, which is what you're going to have with this plane. Okay, so the CG, where I have my CG, if you draw a line from the outer corner of the little square for the control horn, and you draw a line straight across the wing from there, I measured back from the leading edge of the wing 36 millimeters, and that's where I have my CG. And with the weight that I have on it now, with the battery pushed all the way forward, I have a neutral balance at that CG point. And that means that when I balance it on that point, the nose and the tail are level with each other. The nose is not dropping, the tail is not dropping. It's a completely neutral balance at 36 millimeters from the leading edge of the wing. And that's where I had it when I was switching into different modes, including manual mode, and it maintained its straight level flight. So that tells me the balance and the trim are pretty darn good. So if you want to make those adjustments to the plane, that will make it fly better. You don't have to do anything to it. If you're a beginner, the gyro will counteract the tail heaviness. But I can tell you that a better balanced, a well-balanced, well-trimmed plane will fly much better than one that isn't, and that includes one with a gyro. So I'll leave it up to you guys. It'll fly just fine without making any adjustments to it, but if you make the adjustments I spoke about, it will fly even better. So yeah, very good plane for a beginner. No problems whatsoever, no worries. It's easy to fly, it's easy to keep it in the air, it's a nice slow flying plane, it's easy to land, and so yeah, so it's a really good plane. So stay tuned for at least one more flight that I'll publish on this. Once I get the aileron linkage adjusted on it, I'll take it back out with the RadioMaster TX16S and see how the roll rate looks after that with the adjustment in manual mode. It's going to be, I can tell you right now, it's still going to be really, really slow. You need more speed through the air to get those ailerons to really roll it. So, but anyway, stay tuned for that. It's a nice, fun little plane. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the air.